How is this episode so much better than the last episode? Like, what is the scale here? How is this episode is exponentially, it's just, we're on an exponential trend, and I'm liking it. All right, friends, welcome back. We're about to talk about The Acolyte, episode 4, Day. I like that title. It's so simple. Day. But that is what it is. This episode really surprised me in a lot of ways. We're going to be talking about a few things. Let me break it down for you here.
Break it down for me.
We're going to be talking about some surprise cameos. I got to talk about the script and honestly, the writing team. That is a conversation we're going to have. I want to talk about the overall tone of this episode, the directors, and how that, I think, plays into the tone, as well as the mystery. Oh, the mystery of just the Acolyte in general, but also where I'm at with it in regards to this episode and that reveal at the end. So let's talk about that. So one of the things we kind of start off with here early on in the episode is we get this meeting of these Jedi. And at the meeting, one of the characters that we spied with our little eyes was Ki-Adi-Mundi. And I was like, wait a minute. What? And I thought, no, that can't be right. But apparently in the credits, it is Ki-Adi-Mundi. So I don't know what's going on here or how that's possible. When I went to the Wikipedia, it says that he was born in 93 BBY. This show takes place in 132 BBY, I think, thereabouts. About 100 years before The Phantom Menace, I think, is when it's supposed to be set. So, what? Ki-Adi-Mundi is not going to be alive for almost 40 years, according to Wikipedia. So I don't know how this makes sense. I guess he time traveled. You know, I do know that he was allowed to actually have wives because of his species, I think, being more like endangered. So he was actually able to get married, and he was polyamorous, and he has like 5 wives or something like that. So maybe he was like, you know what? I need to time travel. I need to get myself a High Republic wife in here. I want to have one from, I don't know, every Star Wars era. I don't know, but that is a thing. He's there. What does it mean? Did they just forget? I don't know. But it was cool to see him there. I wish it made more sense. Let me know if you have a better explanation in the comments. But that was a weird thing. However, I will say, on a positive note, I do think a lot of the stuff in this episode is better. Like I said, I do think we're just continuing to get better and better as we go. I know some people may not feel that way about episode 3. You know my thoughts on episode 3 if you've seen that review. And if you haven't, you can go check it out. But I do think the script in this episode is the strongest that it's been for me. There are still some moments where it's lacking, but overall, I think it was pretty good. And I do want to say, I touched on this a little bit in my last episode review, but the interesting thing with The Acolyte is that the writers are really all over the place. Like, we have a big writing team here, and each episode is like a different writing group that are working on an episode. I don't even know, have we had any episodes that have just been one writer? Episode 1, yes. And then other than that, it's all like duos or like a group. And the last episode is going to be a single writer. But so episode 3, for example, was Jasmine Flournoy and Eileen Shim. And then this episode was Claire Keachel and Cor Adana. And Cor Adana is also going to be working on the next episode, which is cool. But that's it for Claire, I believe. So that's interesting. And I think it is affecting what's happening a lot with our script in terms of the overall story, because it does feel like this script is kind of janky at moments, even in this episode, but I'm just saying like overall in the show. And I wonder if it's because there just isn't like a cohesion between all the writers in terms of the tone and what they want Star Wars to sound like. I think that's an issue here.
Power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
But like I said, in this episode, I do think the writing is better. I think there are actually even some parts where there were characters talking, and I was like, honestly, that was a pretty good scene. There's some prolific lines. Like, I like how Jecki says to Osha that it's not what you lose, but it's what you survive, when they're kind of talking about these things that we get hung up on and kind of how they can define us or hold us back. And Osha is basically talking about how she wasn't able to embrace death, and because of that, she couldn't be a Jedi, because that's part of being a Jedi. The response, like I said, it's prolific. It is very Jedi. It's such a Jedi thing to say, but I also was just thinking about it, and I was like, oh, that is interesting, and something to think about in life. I like when there are lines that make me just think about my own life and how that can apply, I don't know, in my existence, in my little existence. And that was one of those for me. I think the conversation also that Osha and Yord have about why Osha might really be there, and how Master Soul is super wise, and there could be other layers to why he decided to bring Osha with them. And maybe it isn't about her going after Mae, but it's more about what's going on with her, which then, of course, later is revealed by Master Soul to be the reason that he seems to have wanted Osha there. He wants her to have to confront her past and face kind of her fears in relation to that. So, I mean, I think he also wanted her there for Mae, but I think it's a combination of things. But then, of course, we also have weird script moments, like when Vernestra asks Soul, when he's like, I think we should go out and, like, we should go after Mae, and, like, this is what we'll do, this is the plan. And she's like, but do we have anything that they want? And I was like, wait a minute, but in the meeting that you just had with the other Jedi, you established that Mae was hunting all of the Jedi that were stationed at her home back in the day, and Soul was one of those people, and you literally said, like, you're one of the people that they are targeting and that they are hunting. So you just said that, and then after you were like, but do we know? Is there anything? Also, Osha's still there, so it was just a weird line given the context. I was like, huh? And then Soul's like, yeah, like, we got this. And I'm like, I feel like you shouldn't have to explain that, but I digress. Also, there are a couple moments that I felt were a little, just in terms of the sequences of some events, like, then they say, we're gonna go off on this mission, and then we cut to a ship landing on the planet, and then the ship is actually Qimir, I think is how you say his name, and Mae, and they are arriving on the planet, and for a second, I was like, wait a minute, is this the Jedi are arriving? Is this Osha? Oh no, this is Mae. I will say as well, I think that Mae and Osha are getting a little less different. And I don't think that that is Amandla not defining these two characters. I think it's still clear who is who. But I think that they're not as jarringly opposites, I guess. It's not like so opposing each other. I feel like they're coming towards a sort of middle ground almost. I think it's a choice. And I'm very curious if that is a thing, and I'm picking up on something that's actually happening here, what that means and what it could lead to. People have a theory that when they were created, it was actually a soul that was split in two, and that Mae is the evil half and Osha is the good half. So light and dark, that kind of vibe. And I think there could be something to that. I think that's a fascinating theory, and I'm curious to see if that is correct, because they are very polar opposites. Although, like I said, now I feel like we're finding a bit of balance. Speaking about that, this episode also was very exciting. It had a lot of twists. It had a lot of turns. I was pulled in more than I've been on any other episode, which I did like. I liked that Mae also decides to switch sides, which I wasn't expecting her to do, and I thought was such a cool choice for her. A lot of the character choices in this as well just felt stronger in this episode in terms of why people were doing what they were doing. It was just more interesting, more compelling, and it made a lot more sense, I think, than some of the other stuff that we've seen so far in the Acolytes. I am suspicious of everyone at this point in terms of who could be this master. I was like, it could be, maybe it's Vernestra. She knows where they are. She could be behind this. She could be coming here. It could be, I don't know. Qimir feels somewhat like he's almost mentoring Mae, and I was kind of like, wait a minute. Qimir seems to know a lot of stuff. Maybe he's secretly the master? Obviously, I still think Indara could be a possibility, because how could you not fully utilize Carrie-Anne Moss? I just feel like that would be a waste. And even Soul, to a much lesser extent, though, because I don't think it's actually Soul. But I was like, what if it was Soul? That would be crazy. I don't think that would make any sense. But I'm still suspicious. I'm just suspicious of everyone at this point. I don't know. I'm suspicious of everyone. I do think Qimir and Indara, though, are my strongest people if it's someone that we already know. When it comes to the tone in the episode, I thought it was also really cool. We get a little bit of comedy, which I enjoyed. I know not everyone's gonna like that, but I do think the original Star Wars series, the original trilogy, does have lots of fun comedic moments, and so I don't really think there's anything wrong with having a little bit of comedy here and there. I actually like various projects that have a range of bits, things that are scary, things that are exciting, things that are funny. And there's a little comedic moment on the ship where we get Osha saying that she says yes, she'll go with Sol. She says, but I'm not wearing the civilian robes again. And then we cut to the ship where they're on their way out. Yord's doing a briefing and she's in the civilian robes with her hands in the little pockets. Honestly, it makes me want to get the civilian Jedi robes. Selling it on me. It's just selling it to me. I'm like, maybe I could be a Jedi civilian. Could be a fun vibe. I also like that the Jedi just, have civilians that are their allies that they employ to help them. We also get introduced to Bazil. We also get a return of Pip. I love Pip. Get this little comedic moment between the two of them. Bazil is the tracker, who is also a civilian that's working with the Jedi. And I gotta say, much like Pip, we must protect Bazil at all costs. I was nervous for Bazil in this episode, and I'm glad that I didn't have to be, because Bazil seems to be okay so far. But you know who might not be okay? Sol. Because Sol did a thing. I have trauma based around this, I will admit. But Sol did a thing that I feel like is sometimes a death sentence for people in shows. When you say, we're gonna go do this thing, and then when we get back, I'm gonna explain everything to you. Don't worry, I'll explain it all. You know who once said that? Ned Stark. You know what happened? He didn't make it. He didn't make it back to explain. Explanation pending until the end of Game of Thrones in terms of the show anyways. So I feel like it's not looking good for Sol in the next episode, which also would not be good for me because Sol is a major reason why I'm watching this show. So I really hope that I'm wrong and that Sol makes it. Please let me be wrong. I don't want to be right about this. I also don't want to be right about this because it's kind of a trope. And I mean, tropes can be good depending on how you do them, but if it's true, I saw this one coming a mile away. I just want to put it out there. In terms of the overall tone, though, of the episode, like I said, we do have a bit of comedy. We do also have some spookiness, especially at the end, especially when they're in the uncharted forest. Also, shoutouts to that bridge that led to the uncharted forest. Gotta love when you have an uncharted forest and there's just a bridge that leads you there. Very strange. Very strange. But I digress. That's a minor thing. The forest itself is really cool and really spooky. And then, of course, at the end of the episode, when the day ends, get it? It's called day because it took place during the day. I'm assuming the next episode's going to be called night. And if it's not, I'll be a bit disappointed. But as the night falls, we get what seems to be our Jedi Master, our, Sith now, I'm assuming. Got that red lightsaber, in we come, floating down in the background behind Osha. Very creepy. The music? The music here made me think about how actually I've really liked the music throughout this show. So I just want to say the music has been great. It continues to be great. Very spooky vibes. And I just loved the spookiness of this almost inhuman feeling character descending in the background, and only Sol notices at first, and then we all turn around and it's an extremely powerful Force user, it seems, blasting all these Jedi back, pulling out the lightsaber, and the mask, this design, I just love it. And a lot of people have been saying that the mask is reminding them of Abeloth or Abeloth. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. I feel like I haven't heard it said, but if I have, I don't recall it off the top of my head. And I gotta say, seeing it here too, I was like, yeah, I do get that vibe. And I feel like based off of some of the stuff that we saw in Ahsoka, I'm curious what that means and if it does mean anything like we think. Overall, I am very excited to see who's under the mask. I did notice the hands look pretty humanoid. These hands looking pretty human. I was trying to figure out what the skin tone might be to see if I could figure out who it is. It's very hard though because it's nighttime at that point. So the lighting is, I'm not sure what color. I think they are human. I don't think their hands don't look like they're blue or green or anything like that. So I don't think it's in an alien species, I think. someone more humanoid for sure, which means it could be anyone, because a lot of the people in this that I'm suspecting are that. I guess maybe not Vernestra. She pretty green, you know? So I feel like maybe I would notice that. But also it is at night, so I don't know. Maybe the hands are green and I just can't tell because the lighting. Trying to distract us with all these colors, all the red glows. So that's what I have for this episode, friends. I think overall I would give this one, I think, a 9 out of 10. It's pretty close to perfect for me. I really, really enjoyed it. I really had a lot of fun with the episode. It ends, though. It ends right at the point where I want to see what happens next. And I know they're doing that to rope us in next episode, and I know they're going to have a lot. But this episode was also kind of short. Like, I think it was like 35 minutes. It didn't feel short, though. It did feel like they had enough stuff in it. So I guess I can't fully complain. I just, we're about to get into a really cool fight, and I would kind of have loved to see it. But I guess I'll wait till next week. Guess we all have to do that. So that's where I stand on this episode. Let me know what you thought of this one. Did you like it better? Did you like it worse? What have been your favorite or your least favorite episodes? I mean, also shout out to the director in this episode. It was Alex Garcia Lopez, who absolutely smashed it. The whole mood, the whole tone. This was the first episode that Alex directed, and also going to be directing the next episode. So I'm really excited for it because I really liked this episode. I do think the directors overall are dictating a lot of the vibes in these episodes. I think direction is, obviously direction is huge in general, but I think if there's episodes that you've really loved or episodes that you've not really loved or episodes that you've really disliked, take a look at who's writing and who's directing. I think it's important to do that just in general when you're consuming stuff like this. I don't think as many people look at, all of the people that are in a crew, but it can really shape how a production goes, and it can also help you find other projects that you like or other projects that you might want to avoid if you don't like someone. For me, I'm more looking at when I like something, who was that, so that I can find their other work. So, yeah, shoutouts to Alex. Great job. Can't wait to see the next episode. And that's it for this one, friends. See you next time, and until then, stay nerdy.